Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the listeners out there. Welcome once again to our, well, bi weekly or monthly podcast, the Three Wise Potatoes. We have once again our seasoned regulars, Prush and Dean. How are the both of you doing?
Hello. Doing alright, and
Hello.
you?
Oh,
Quite well.
Good, good.
just suffering from that winter cold. Not fun right now.
You're referring to temperature or like feeling
No,
under the
no,
weather?
it's more just the temperature.
Oh, but that's my favorite part.
No, I love the winter, but the problem is when you get up in the morning, you know that it's so cold.
Yes, winter wasn't
That,
meant for like being an adult.
yeah, just the cool part of the morning is like when you wake up and you like as soon as the warm shower gets on,
Yeah. But between the bed and the shower, that's the perilous journey.
That's very true. That's very true. It's like this chilling cold as well. I remember, back when we were in Durban, like I still used to go to gym at 5 in the morning in winter time.
Yeah, but Durban only has summer and more summer.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But yeah, like you say, just that as soon as you remove the covers, that's it. It's done. Like you
you like
just get
instantly
that
wake up.
difference in temperature differential. It's not great. It's
Yeah.
not great. I mean, I love dressing up for winter. Like, my winter game is strong.
It is. It truly is, people.
But, yeah, just not the cold like Brush says.
But
And we have a lot of different viruses running around here.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
Running
It's like
mock.
a festival of diseases at the moment.
yeah, honestly. But we got a fireplace.
Yeah, that certainly helps.
So,
It helps radiate the heat
And a little bit of
throughout the
ambiance.
house. Ambience, yes, that too, that too. That too.
Nice vibes.
I would experiment with that fireplace. Good, I'd make it like I'd add different elements, like powdered elements,
what do you
to
mean?
get it
Smell?
like flu powder, for example.
Like smell?
You could make it green,
The color.
like
Yeah.
yes.
There's certain things that you can add into the fireplace. There's certain things you can't. So I'm just check what I can. I
Toxicity levels.
can't. I think it's more just
Uh,
what the fireplace that can find that it doesn't.
oh, right.
Fair.
What elements? Yeah, okay, cool.
But most of the time you don't like you just put wood. It's actually like the whole house is like, super. I can literally just take my snuggie
Warm.
off
Toasty.
and
Yeah,
fill it with
Yeah.
a t-shirt.
okay.
But
See, that's cool.
yeah, I am really and it's 100% worth it in fireplace.
Nice.
It is expensive though. It's not the cheapest thing in the world.
No.
Not at all, not at all. Maybe you can move your bed to the fire to where
The
the
lounge.
fireplace is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sleep there.
the other day I was literally like, maybe I should keep this.
Until the fire like runs out, then you're screwed.
Then you have to get up and put more.
Just wait. I'm sure one of you will come up with an automated wood delivery system.
Interesting.
Set it on every hour. Drop a log in.
Just have a really big log. I've been watching these, these survival videos, where these guys solo in the in like the really cold areas,
Yeah.
like in the bush with snowing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in order for them to last the night, they basically have really long logs. That's pretty much it. So they don't have to get up at night.
Oh.
That's the only way. Because if you just have the normal sized logs,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you have to get up consistently through the night to have the fire going.
So how do they keep the fire? Like what? How do they put the log in?
Some of them have a vertical system, so it's like a really long, really big, and then the logs are vertical, and as it burns,
It falls slower
then
and lower
gravity,
and lower.
yeah, gravity will push it down.
Oh,
Huh. Interesting.
Things like that.
That's actually quite
So it's interesting. Yeah. But of course, like indoors, it's very difficult to have a really large,
Yeah, true.
like a massive sized tree sort of thing in the fireplace. It's not gonna work.
even if you fireplace, I mean, you have to get up every half an hour to chat another language, something like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So this is Precious' turn this week
What?
Yep.
What?
to guide us through this cast.
Yeah, I didn't cover
So
the topic. I sort of picked it. I was having trouble picking a topic, and having a discussion with somebody at work, and then he seems to be having a problem. Oh, you know what you need? You need closure. And then I was like, ooh.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
this is a very interesting
Oh,
one.
boy.
Dean.
And that's the reaction I was expecting, because I was like, ooh,
Oh God.
it's a nice one. So,
Oh God.
Quality blindside.
Oh God.
First class.
There we go.
hi.
I'm not ready for this one. I'm gonna just be quiet. Dean, you can take this one.
Yeah, because I'm the master at this shit. Jeez. Oh boy. Okay.
Look, I think
Okay.
Over to you.
it's a difficult topic, and I like to push different topics, but I think it's something
Of
where
course, dude. Of course.
this requires discussion. I think look, it's not going to be the longest one, because obviously there's not too much.
Because we don't know how to do it, that's why.
No.
I mean, someone had to say it.
No, it's more a thing of, you know what needs to be done. It's a difficult one.
Choosing to do it,
to create,
to be honest.
a pathway for But let's get into it. So I think let's start.
Okay, cool.
Let's start, I don't either one of you, but let's start
Dean.
with what does closure mean to you?
Okay, let's think. What does closure mean to me? It means to be able to overcome something or move past something without it affecting you adversely in the future, I would say.
Okay, so I think I'd agree with that. But I think I'd like to add that also closure perhaps is, I think as is defined by many different people, would be a definitive end to something.
Yeah.
It's like a stop. It's like a line in the sand. So like it's a demarcation of something, and then you move forward from there. You're pretty much bringing an end to something. Like as I say, you make the choice to consciously bring an end to something, and you make that same conscious choice once again to move beyond this closure, this period, this time, as I'd say. So it's a definitive end to something that is of your choosing. And like Dean says, there's perhaps a healthy way to do it, and there's perhaps not a healthy way to do it, and maybe we'll discuss the healthy and unhealthy ways as well, as we move along. But that's I think I'd agree with Dean, and then I just had to add just that portion there.
So just to add to maybe both of your answers, is it an end to something mentally, or is it just mental, or is it mental and emotional, or is it mental, emotional, and physical? I mean, obviously the answer can be all three, but you know what I mean in terms of how you see it. Is it all, or is it just generally a mental thing, or?
I think it's an end. Like, if I can put it this way, because if it's an end to your reality with certain something, now that reality is physical, metaphysical, emotional, and so on and so forth. So if I can just group all of that together, because it is a physical end. It can be a physical end, it can be an emotional end, it can be a mental end, it can be any sort of other end. So if I say, then the reality closes. in that space. That's really what I liken it to.
It's a reality.
Yeah, I think it's also. I want to bring the word attachment in here. It's detaching from a situation or the releasing of an attachment as well.
But I mean, the attachment and detachment, or well, sorry, detachment in this case, then would you say is a byproduct of the closure as well? So like here's the thing, right? So you have I'm gonna throw keywords out here. You have release,
Yeah.
you have letting go, you have letting go, you have detachment, you have there's a word that I'm missing here. It's a very big one as well.
Surrender.
Surrendering. Yes, that's the one I'm looking for. And what I see all of these things leading up to give you closure.
So if I'm understanding it right, maybe it's the, I don't know if I can put it this way, is your non-identification as a persona to what used to be this scenario, event, situation, type of thing. Your
Yes.
non-identification linked to it going further.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because you
Is it
when
identification
you
or
seek
attachment?
closure from something, isn't it about at the end of the day, in the healthy sense, right? Because this is targeting currently the healthy sense, like those keywords: release, letting go, detachment, surrendering. That's the healthy way of kind of doing it. I know Dean's gonna laugh because it's not the current situation.
Yeah, something we both struggle with.
But yeah, that's really the healthy way of doing it, because I mean, it's going from a space now of this was part of me, but now it doesn't resonate with me anymore. It's going from knowing to unknowing this,
Like,
being a part of me to not being a part of me, that sort of thing.
Dean, is that also okay, or you want to help?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, I think like there's the process of getting closure, and then upon that release or detachment or completion of your process, then closure will then occur.
Okay. I like the difference, because I was thinking about it now. How would I define it? I thought maybe let me ask the question, because like having a multiple views allows you to come up with a better identification method. Quite done quite nicely. The second question I had on my list is like is a sort of a two-part question. And I thought about adding it later, but I think I can ask it now and maybe ask it again later. Right?
Okay.
Is closure important, and does one actually need closure? Right? So we didn't have to answer the question fully now, but I think it's something that if you have some basis of wanting to answer it, you can. But I wanted to ask it as early as possible, because I think throughout the discussion it might change our answers, but I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. So okay, very interesting enough. As you were asking that question, I have here: do we need it from source? Do we actually need it from another source? That's really what I wrote it down here.
Well,
Sorry, because I wanted to ask that as
Can
well.
closure come from another source, or can it only come from you? But this is a different question. Right? Like, let's go.
No, yes, which is why I want to like touch on both.
But that's why I
right?
have to say, because I
At
need
that-
fast. So
Yeah. Like okay, Dean, just remind me to do it from the other source, right? Just now.
Okay.
But I think firstly, when you asked us what the definition was, and I said it's when Dean and I both said it's really a choice. You have to choose to have this sort of closure. You can choose to have the open wound, or this thing open ended forever. And perhaps the unhealthy way is that you keep that open forever. I'm not saying that there are some instances where you'll choose to keep it open, and yeah, that's your choice. But at the end of the day, that's an unhealthy choice, I suppose. But the healthy way is you choosing to sort of close whatever it is that you are required to do in order to move on going forward. Right. So I think personally, yes, you do need it. It is worthwhile for you to have some sort of closure in your life, but and now dealing with it from external sources, you might not need it from an external source. Remember, if you make a decision to choose something, then it's your decision. That external validation from someone else or that external validation from source doesn't have to be there, because ultimately that decision, is yours, and you've just made it. So that's what I think. You do need closure, but for yourself.
Can I have the question again?
Well,
please.
the question was, is closure important? And the second part of it says, one includes need. It's sort of the two
Okay.
parts, because if it is important, then it's not important.
So I have a slightly different take on it, right? So is it important? Yes, absolutely. Do we need it? Debatable. It depends, right? So if you don't have closure, you can still function, but you won't be like functioning as best you can, right? Imagine like you can drive a car with the doors open, but at some point it's going to become a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the faster you try to go, it's going to become harder. It's a terrible analogy, but you get what I'm saying. Right?
But it's
good.
yeah.
It's good.
So is it important? Yes, absolutely. Do you need it? It depends, right? If you're trying to move forward with your life instead of just continue, existing, like if you just need to exist, then you can get away without needing closure, right? And it will catch up to you eventually, but you can get away for quite a while. But if you're trying to live a happy, fulfilled life, then it's crucial.
Okay. I definitely get it. I think that from the question, it is important, and it's an important part of our whole person. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to keep living, but it really helps, right? On some level.
Yeah, there's living and then there's really living. And like you can survive, but you won't be living. Like you won't enjoy life as much as you could.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be gaps, right? Like Dean's analogy, you will never be able to go as fast as you can.
It won't
if
be
the doors are
comfortable
open.
either, let me tell you.
The wind, the cold, especially
It could
in
fall out
winter,
the car, it's not great.
could do a lot of things. Yeah, that's it, right? So it's
Okay.
if you want to go far in life, then yes, I'd say closure is quite important.
Yeah.
I think it's more a thing of if you want speed bump free or not less speed bumpy roads, it's important to address things like this. But not to say that
It's very hard to do though, as well.
okay.
Like it is
No.
extremely
But I
hard
think
to do.
you definitely get into that part. And the second part
Yeah.
to your answer, you'll also get into that part, right? But
Okay.
I wanted to just take it a little bit in another direction to see before we get back to that, because obviously
Okay.
those things are related, right? But when did you guys first learn about closure? I think that for me is the question. It's a difficult one, but there's definitely a point in your mind where you were like, okay, I know the difference between not understanding closure and understanding closure.
Okay, so you're asking when did we understand what closure was?
And yeah, when did you first learn about it?
Okay, but learn about it means I know what the word is and I know people are talking about it. And then there's, oh, now I get what it is.
Okay, I think let's go with now I get what it is.
Yeah, I think the meaning
Because
behind
yeah,
it.
a word is a word.
Phew, I don't even know. Like, I would have heard the word fairly early on. Like, when you're young, someone in your family unfortunately passes away, and like the family's talking about things, and closure. The word closure comes up at some point. In terms of when I understood the meaning of it, that I don't know. Probably like a really decent grasp of it was maybe in my 20s.
So not early.
Definitely not. No.
I don't think so as well. I think it comes with maturity as well. Like the analogy, like what Dean used, death is the most common one that we experience of loved ones. It is at times, it is inevitable. Excuse me, not at times. It is inevitable. And when we're young, we're not understanding of how to actually process a lot of these things. We don't understand our emotions. Firstly, we don't understand our mental state, our physical state, what's going on around us. And at that point in time, we didn't know what closure was. We didn't know how to let go, how to detach, how to surrender. What is this completion state? What is this release state as well? We didn't know anything about those things. And I think I second Dean's, timeline there of as you gain maturity in, for example, he mentioned 20s, and then you further understand. But I think there's levels to it as well. Like I don't think, if I'm looking at the list that we just kind of put together right now, it's in its entirety. I understand all of them now, and I'm enacting them now, and I'm embodying them now. But as I was growing up, I perhaps only knew about one, and then as time went by, then I found out about the others, and then started really diving into the depths of them, and then seeing how could I, implement that within my life whenever I talk about closure. So it's not a early on thing. It's maturity and really having to dive in and sit with a lot of these terms and seeing whether you can employ them in your life. I would say late 20s for me.
I think there's a little bit more that we might not be paying attention to here. So there's definitely an aspect of maturity, but I think it's also a function of the culture and society we grew up in. And I think Yashana is similar in the sense that we were not encouraged as men to discuss our feelings. And I say men, but like the men in our family and our role models, growing up, the men in our family didn't really engage with emotions. It was very much a suppress that and head down and carry on. It wasn't. And if you were a young, regardless of your age, you're a little boy all the way through to when you're in your 20s, it wasn't encouraged. These are choices that we made as we were older because we recognized it wasn't healthy and it wasn't serving us. And the only way we're going to not even become better people, the only way we're going to survive what we were going through is if we actually engaged with our emotions instead of burying them.
Okay, so from what I understand about you, it can be in a lot of ways a taught thing, but it's more or less fully felt as you mature and your emotional depth sort of increases for you to be able
Yeah.
to also feel the feelings, but understand what they mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I only heard about a lot of these terms when I was in therapy. Like that's realism of it, and then I had to dive into everything with exercises and all of that jazz. But like it's that's really only when I learned about them.
Yeah, the toolkit they give you.
Yeah,
Okay? I think that's definitely important. I think marking those things as terms of emotional, I wouldn't say maybe depth, but also maturity, um, also maybe experience, but also how you were taught in terms of how you were taught to deal with these sort of situations and the the level of depth that needs to be taught to be able to experience that fully.
yeah,
Okay, right.
and I'd like to just mention as well, like when you think you have some sort of closure to something, it's not like that's now buried and gone away and forgotten
Yeah.
about. I don't think that's the case. So when you learn something new about closure, when you learn something new about the situation, when you learn something new, let's just say learn something new, you can go back and revisit it.
Sure.
You can go back and reevaluate. You can go back and then reopen that box, let's just say, and gain new insights. So I don't think like closure is the end all and be all. Like over time, you're going to go back and you're going to revisit things
So,
because things come up,
so
right?
you're saying it doesn't just disappear. It's basically just a thing of like I've dealt with it, but that doesn't mean it's gonna go away. It's more a thing of I've dealt with it and I kind of keep it.
Correct. Yes. I mean, like you've recently watched Inside Out too, right? And Inside Out, they have long term memory. It's part of that, you know.
Right. I think that's it. You can use that analogy. This is inside out. Literally like stubborn. Um, but
Yep.
so I do have a question after this one, but clearly it's a bit of a answered question because, like I say, the question essentially was in the past has closure helped you? I think it's clear that it has. Uh, but if there's anything else you wanted to add to the question, I can still ask it. But has there been a case maybe where it hasn't helped you? Um, where it's been destructive or negative? Or is it mostly a case of once you reach closure on this specific item, generally a positive?
So I know, Prash, that you do this rebirth thing, or reforming or reforging, rather, I should say. So I'm going to say rebirth and reforging. I know you do that sort of thing. So I think like after closure, the positivity that comes out of it is really that rebirth and reforging. So it certainly is something that helps you along your pathway. I don't think it's destructive. Well, not in my case in any way. Everything that's come out of it, if I look back now in retrospect, has been positive.
Okay.
Like nothing has had negative impacts on my life. It's just given me a refreshed view, and it's given me a refreshed view of not only self, but on what I need to do now, after I've gained closure. So if you get that, so like that's really what it's done for me, in terms of that.
Yeah, I don't know of any. I can't think of any instances where either myself or anyone I know has had a negative impact after closure. Usually, closure, it puts the person in a healthier and stronger position once it's attained. So I don't really know of anything where it's been bad
All right.
or
So I
destructive.
thought I'd ask the question because I feel the same way as you guys. I think in the same direction as you guys, but sometimes you just maybe don't have that experience. Yeah. So
I can imagine people going through a destructive phase, to gain closure,
Yeah,
but I can't imagine them like gaining closure and then being destructive afterward. Like for example, there are phases of emotions that you feel. I'm going to use anger, envy, and all those ones that we say are not so great, right? Jealousy and so on and so forth. Like you will feel those feelings, and those are things that need to be addressed, but it can be destructive if you let them be.
yeah.
Like for example, you get so angry you're going to key someone's car, as an example.
Yeah.
I know that's extreme, but like we've seen the Instagram posts and I've seen Twitter posts of exes, keying each other's cars and destroying each other's cars with baseball bats and things like that, and that's destructive.
Yeah.
But that leads to closure for them. It's horrible, of course, what they've done, but
so the
it leads to their
the
closure.
path to that end goal, the end goal, healing himself.
Yes, exactly. And then you move past it, and then it's
Yeah, no,
you're now in a different space.
No, the reason I asked the question is because is there a situation where you've been through closure and there's a certain part of you that gets lost because you can't, you just can't access that because of the closure itself. Yeah, I just thought of that as a But
Can you give me an
I
example?
definitely hear you.
No, I haven't had that.
I mean, like,
difficult kind of picture.
I think
you have.
do lose a part of yourself, but that's also the point. It's the death and rebirth. It's the forging. It's you will lose something, but it's in the process of evolving. You lose stuff. Like you lose your baby teeth and you get permanent teeth. It's,
Yeah, you do the reforging and rebirth good, so you know this. When the tarot readers pull the devil card, it's a rebirth.
true.
Okay, very good. I like that. I feel like that's really touched on. So the next question I have is, it's a little bit more of a difficult one because it takes that level of emotional and level of maturity. But how does you or how does a person be able to within themselves recognize if they need closure? You know what I mean? And is there a way that they can trigger that point of saying, "Oh, I actually need to address this, and maybe I should seek closure."
I think I have a question that I ask myself: is this doing more harm to me than good?
Mm.
And really, the outcome of that determines what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that is affecting your day-to-day life, if it's affecting your work, if it's affecting your family, if it's affecting your ability to engage with people, if there's potentially trauma that's now associated with it, then the trauma is stopping you from living a happier, more fulfilled life. If if it feels like there's a giant chain ball, attached to your leg, and you're slowed down for whatever reason, that's worth addressing. It's like maybe then you need that closure.
It's also such a overwhelming, overpowering. There's another detrimental word I can use, but like I just can't get to me right now. But like using those words, it's Dean said that it's ball and chain, and it's like really hurting you. You feel that.
Yeah.
You will feel it. You will feel that this is not the space that I want to be in. And like you say, it takes that maturity and consciousness to really recognize that within yourself. Like enough is enough. Like I'm sitting in, I'm wallowing, and I'm sitting in self pity, and this is not the mental state that I want to be. This is not the emotional state I want to be. This is not the physical state that I want to be. So enough is enough. So is it detrimental to you? Simple questions that you can ask yourself, and then then you'll know how to plan your way forward from there. It's not easy, I suppose. I mean, I think I mentioned in the previous podcast that publicly, I think I was pretty wrecked a few months ago, and I made the decision or the conscious choice to really to move on from that.
Yeah, usually when closure is required is because there's some form of trauma or grief that the person is undergoing. Whether it is through a loss of something, or be it like the loss of life, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, the loss of something, like there's usually grief associated with it, and you know when you're grieving, or at least most people do, right? And sometimes people are like go into such autopilot that they put the grief aside just so that they can function. But eventually that'll catch up to you. Like as a human being, something's not quite right. Whether you're burying it and suppressing it, if you're working to not address something as well, that's an indication. Like if you have to put energy into not doing something, that's also an indication. So there's always signs. The trick is to not be overwhelmed by the grief or by the negative emotions, because you can get caught up in that whirlpool very quickly and you can spiral. And it can be very overwhelming. So to feel those things in a healthy manner and in a safe manner, and then go, okay, I want to work through this. It's not that I necessarily just want to get over it, because those emotions are very valid and they're heavy emotions and they take time and a lot of respect to work through. So you've got to show them the respect they deserve and work through them in a healthy fashion. And, the only way out is through. So, make your way through them, and eventually the closure will come.
I like that because you sort of answered the next question as part of your answer. Um, because I was going to ask what are the steps that one could take to begin that process, and you laid it out really well. When you both of you did, in terms of how to notice the trigger point, but also how to work through it slowly. And I think that the word that you use there, slowly and methodically, also I think is quite important.
I think as well it needs mentioning that it could be different for everyone as well.
Yeah.
Like you might not recognize a closure is needed until it's perhaps too late as well,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Fair.
I know for me, I had to rip the band-aid out completely. Like absolutely rip the band-aid, and force myself into it.
Okay. So in some cases,
That was this time
it needs
around.
to it needs some overcoming of maybe stubbornness or willingness or avoidance. In some cases.
Avoidance as well, ego,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. It also depends on the ego itself. So sometimes it's just something you don't want to address it because your ego is like, um,
Yeah.
I don't
I
want to face
think
that.
You could also be deflecting
Yeah.
as well, plus, a lot of people are very good at acting strong or
Sure.
acting like everything's
True.
okay, even. I mean, they're so good that they can fool themselves. Weird. I'm not joking, I've seen it.
no, it's true. But even if you are good at fooling yourself, eventually it catches up to you. But
Yep.
I think the word I'm thinking of right now is boundaries. And that when it starts to affect you to the point where boundaries are being crossed in your life, or whatever that tipping point is, whatever that boundary is, that makes you go, okay, I've had enough of this now. Like with Yash, he ripped the band-aid off there because a boundary was crossed. It was affecting too many things. And he went, no, that's enough of that now. I'm going to take different steps to address this. For some people, if it starts affecting their family or their partner or their kids, then that's enough of a wake-up call. That's boundaries crossed that they will not allow anymore. And it pushes them to go get help.
Like,
It reaches a threshold,
Yes.
right? That absolute threshold, and you're like, I'm off the cliff now. I'm gonna get pushed off the cliff.
actually, there's a lot of
So it needs to stop.
different signs that you can use. I mean, if it's a personal thing and it's not affecting other people, it could just be a wall in front of you that's stopping you from progressing in a certain way. Right? But where it's something that could affect people around you, loved ones, like that, it's boundaries. Um, but also, there's a lot of different indicators like your ego or your avoidance of something or your stubbornness to not want to deal with something or your unhappiness with a certain situation. Which I think if one forces you to deal with that environment, like there's a saying, the way I'm understanding it, or also once you've dealt with that environment or that situation, you can gain closer by facing it. And I think that's a really nice way to hopefully sum up what you guys are saying in terms of my understanding.
Yeah.
I like that. It's quite concise in terms of, I know it's broad, but it gives like someone that's listening a good understanding of what they can look out for.
And there's also something that needs to be said, that you can know what to take, what the next steps are after you've made that decision, but it by no means is easy, because I know you mentioned avoidant. You're gonna resist.
Sure, of course.
Your mind primarily likes to resist change
Yeah.
with everything. It likes to keep the status quo, and it's going to be resistance from yourself even, but you have to persist, and persist you must over and over again until you have that. I think Dean mentioned that state of peace and calm really early on.
No, I really do like it.
Again,
I think it's a nice way of putting it. I don't know if a lot of people will be able to, like you say, keep addressing it. But I think if you want the benefits of being comfortable with that thing that's happened to you, at least you can
have you any of you like experienced any blocks mentally whenever either of you have needed closure in the past, like mental blocks, or just yourself putting up resistance walls or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yep. I've literally thought to myself, why is my brain so stupid? Why does it keep doing this? Because there's one part of my brain's like, you know what, I just want to put this thing down and never touch it again. And then there's the other part of my brain that's like picking it up and go, nope, it's coming with us.
I definitely felt that. But what I've noticed is my brain doesn't put it down or want to put it down. My brain is ask more questions in terms of why this happened, why are we doing this,
Yeah.
why, what happened, how do we fix this, what is this,
See,
and it keeps asking questions
see my
until I get to an answer. And it's like, okay, there's nothing now.
but so I'll tell you, when I was going through that a few months back, like my rational mind at some point was also hindering me.
Mm.
Like I, like you, Guj, was asking a bazillion questions, but did did we actually need to ask those questions for to ourselves to gain that closure?
It depends on the type.
Like,
Yeah, so the way I to answer the question, for me,
yeah,
it depends on the type of personality you have. Like,
Yeah.
I think with like being answered very different, right? It's the type of personality and how you deal with situations. Like, you may deal with them differently. You and I are sort of we brute force it, you know, until an answer pops up at great cost to what could possibly be our emotional state for that period. You know?
yeah.
But we're willing to sacrifice that to get to an answer so that we can move on. But yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. I don't know. It's like people deal with it differently. You know, when being deals with it differently, I'm not sure.
No, I still go through the question and answer thing. I'll come up with a bunch of answers, but I still will struggle to let go of something. I'll have the answers, but I'm incapable of putting the thing down. It's like I'm holding this thing plus the answers, and I'm like, hey, look at my hands, they're full, and it's still rubbish.
Yeah, Prush mentioned the emotional side as well, and the emotional side is very strong of us.
Yeah.
Like most recently, like my rational mind knows the thing. Like Dean said, he knows the answer, but my emotional side is like, fuck
It's
you.
not satisfied.
It's not
Yeah.
satisfied. It wants to keep things, and yeah, I'm an emotional being, and I run with my emotional engine on all the time, not my rational mind. So it wins. My emotional side wins the war most days. But even though, like, I've rationally answered everything, like Dean said, it's still there.
Yep.
I, I, I've, I've gotten to the point now where I wait until I get that freedom feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It happened
Dobby
to
is
me.
free.
Yeah, it literally. It happened to me once where I was looking for closure in a situation, and when I reached closure, it was like the best day of my life. You know, the day where you wake up, you get like your
Catharsis.
favorite food, and the sun is shining, and you get ice cream for dessert. You know that feeling, right? And then you sitting on the
Mm-hmm.
beach in the sand, chilling and drinking. That feeling, when you get that feeling after a situation has happened, that's when I know I've reached closure emotionally. In that specific situation, because I'm not tied to it. And like all of you, I suppose of you are saying, it's a situation where you keep holding on to this thing until you reach closure. Um, there's sort of a time period in which you have to wait until that, and then I'm, because maybe sometimes it's just needing to get over that feeling thing. Um,
Yeah, the time period as well is not set for
mm,
everyone. I know I've mentioned to a lot of different people, like I'm engaging with a lot of different people on threads, as an example, Instagram's threads. And one of the comments that I made today was, it's different for everyone.
yeah,
Some people might take an inordinate amount of time to work through things, and that's perfectly fine. There's, like Prash said, you'll wake up one day feeling a lot different, and that's kind of when you know.
Yeah. You feel lighter.
yeah. That's maybe the way I look at it. I know I put it down. You know, not so much confidence. I'm not flipping sometimes. So the next, can I ask the next question?
Yeah,
Go for
go
it.
for
Go
it.
for it.
So this was, I think, the one that Jack was saying earlier. Kind of, do I need the other person or people thing in that situation to recognize that I need closure, or do I need that other half of the situation um, so that they have some hands in you reaching closure. You know, it might not be a person, it might be a situation, or you know what I mean. But do I need that other force to be able to recognize or play a part in my closure? Not necessarily recognize, play a part in my closure to reach closure completely.
I think it depends on the person. I know a lot of to rely on someone else to give you something. It's not sustaining at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you are a complete person all on your own. I know we've mentioned this many times before, and early on I mentioned, like, the decision is yours to close this and to move past it and to move on, and you don't necessarily need anyone else's recognition. Like, I know a lot of people would love recognition and love a finality to things and love soft letdowns and soft endings, but sometimes it's just not possible. For example, I learned early on for job rejections, which is, those automated
Yeah.
ones, right? And I felt them very impersonal and very crude, and things like that. Like, I didn't understand why. I didn't understand what was wrong, and so on and so forth. But in my mind, like, I early on in my career, I used to take it very badly. Now, though, I think, okay, this is not something that I need from them, to let me down easy or whatever. I just need to be able to be self confident enough, or there's another word, self assured enough, excuse me, rather, that it has nothing to do with me in a bad way. It's I can just move past this and try again, that sort of thing. So I don't necessarily need someone else's validation or someone else's soft ending or some other entity's recognition for me to move past something. Well, that's in my case in particular. Like I said before, like I started with, other people might be different. Other people might want that in order to move on, or they need it to move on, rather. Like, that need is will prevent them from actually moving past this, you know. So it's dependent.
Yeah, I would agree that it's dependent on the person, but I would say that I don't think anybody needs the other person to give them closure. It's about whether you should allow other people to provide you that, because I think the people that get closure from others are often the people that are happy to cede control to other people, right? They're happy to take the lead from others, and they don't necessarily want to take the lead in their own journey. So they look for this permission slip, in the form of the other person, coming to the party
Yeah.
and, giving them what they need, because then they don't have to necessarily do any of the work. And maybe it's because the work is overwhelming, or maybe their personality type is a very submissive personality type, and they need other people to provide the way for them. So I would say some people, they do need it, but I don't think it's something you should look for in others. I think you should always. I think it's more attainable from yourself because you got more control over that. A lot of people think they're going to get closure by having a conversation with an ex, or someone that's been abusive or whatever that might be, and often it just makes it worse, or they come away feeling unfulfilled and they don't have the closure. It's just emptiness. So, like, you'll hear, oh, I thought I was going to get closure, but everything's just worse now. And it's because they were never going to get closure from the party that hurt them in the first place. Sometimes you do, because maybe that person that caused the damage became a bit more self-aware and is regretful. But a lot of the time, people don't necessarily want to accept that they have all the power, actually, and they have all the control. It's just, it's a bit daunting. If it's all on me, then what if I screw it up? Whereas if it's someone else, then, well, I have someone to blame, or I don't actually need to take as much responsibility for it.
I like the way you put it. I think both of you.
Yeah, giving the power to someone else or giving that control to someone else.
I like the way you.
Dangerous,
Yeah.
of course.
Look, I think that both of you have the same grasp on it in terms of the fact that you don't necessarily allow somebody else. It's not that you can't. that you find that taking the power away from that situation and giving it to yourself allows you to grasp that answer better. Um, if I understand that, I think that's definitely important, especially for somebody who's, like you say, more submissive, um, and it can really give them power in terms of growth going forward. So I really like the way you guys put that.
I think maturity is realizing that you look within and not look with external
Yeah.
when you're doing this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, is it, I think this question was more just in support of the previous one, but or the previous question. But is there someone or some type of thing in your life that you could use that would be good at helping someone through the process of reaching closure? Um, or is it more just
Taylor Swift,
a
Red
self?
Album.
Oh.
Surprisingly,
Taylor Swift, Folklore.
surprisingly,
Whichever Taylor Swift album you love, just put it on
Actually, don't go
repeat.
with Dead Poets Department. That'll just make you sink further. The other two, yeah, they can be healing. Dead Poets Department, no, not so much.
so now that I know you've answered it with me, but the topic came up because I was having a discussion, like I said at the beginning, and at some point, this person also gave me, because I listen to Spotify, right? And it's just music that I have on playlist. And this person actually put up a playlist, and they said that this is what they use when they need to overcome a certain situation, whatever it is. And I was like, okay, so like, I know you put it in terms of music, but it's pretty on the nose in terms of the situation that I face, which is like this. Maybe music is,
Do you know why music does what it does? Because
yeah,
so many people struggle to access their emotions or deal with their emotions. But what is music if not the sound of emotions?
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I can really feel that. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, if there's anything else that can help people with reaching closure, I think those things. I think maybe the answer is in what will help you feel your feelings, what will help you feel the emotions of having to um, overcome that specific situation. I think is the answer. Is
One of the things I think that okay, aside from music, right? I think what really helped during that period. I think at the beginning of the year, I sent a photo to you guys that I bought a new journaling
yeah,
book.
Yeah.
So the journaling book every day has certainly helped as well, because you can quickly doodle down what's going on in your state and things like that. So it's a step. It's not the complete thing, right? Because there's a whole process that you need to go through. But really, that the journaling aspect has been a massive savior for me. So, because I know we've mentioned before, and I think today as well, that letting it out, even in the form of paper, writing a letter to yourself, even, and saying, "Hey, this is what's impacting me right now on this day," and so on and so forth. It is a form of therapy
so
to yourself, like the accompanying music. I know we can say that we can put Taylor Swift songs or whatever songs on, but also that can hold us in a certain emotional state, which might not be healthy too, right? I know that there are a few songs which I used to play and repeat in certain bad patches, which helped me in the emotional state that was unhealthy. So, like journaling was certainly one aspect of it, and then talking, reverbing. I know we've had a lot of different chats on the side. So talking about it, being open about it, writing letters to yourself, can certainly be therapeutic.
okay, I'll definitely take that. I think we've spoken a lot about journaling now, so it's just another avenue for it to be used well. Okay. The next question I know is a difficult one, but I think it's
Oh
it's worth
boy.
asking. what happens if I can't get closure in a specific event or scenario? Maybe it's out of my hands, you know. Um, is there
Can I ask what at what
okay? Is there a
point?
scenario where that can?
I don't know, because I know Dean mentioned earlier it's in your control,
Yeah.
right? You decide. So if it's in your control, then in what situation would it not be you would be able
So
to
no, no,
gain
no.
some sort of closure?
That's the reason I asked
See,
the
I'm not.
question, not because I know a specific situation, but maybe even if there's a
Oh,
listener
okay.
that can understand that there's maybe no situation
I think
you can't reach it or not.
the only way is if you're fighting against yourself. I think that's what
So
that's the only way I think you can't gain closure is if you're fighting against yourself. I know I mentioned I have a very strong emotional side, and it is the deciding factor in everything for me, even against my rational mind, where my rational mind will 100% know it needs to be done, but my emotional side will be like, ain't happening, bro, ain't happening. So I think that's the only situation where you you won't be able to do this if one side overpowers the other.
But then the thing is, it's still technically in your hands because the
Yeah,
only
true,
person holding you back
true.
is you, right?
Yes, which is why I said like it's you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think,
There's this book. There's this book. It's called "The Mountain Is You."
yeah,
So I'm gonna go buy it. I'm gonna go buy it just now. Well, tomorrow
tomorrow.
or Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah, it speaks about a lot of these things.
Yeah. I think that it's a perception versus reality thing for most people. A lot of people might perceive that it's not something that's attainable, but the reality is that it probably is. And it may come back down to, are you someone that wants to take control, or are you someone that wants someone else to be in charge? And are you going to cede control? So, then your closure is dependent on others, because then the permission slip exists elsewhere. Whereas for people that actively go, you know what, I want to take control of the situation, and I'm going to find my way through this. They've made the decision, and they will. It might take them a long time, might be extraordinarily frustrating, and there may be, many, many setbacks along the route, and
Tell me about
it
it.
might take months, it might take years, but eventually they will see the other side of it.
I,
And if you have belief in yourself, then you'll find it.
I like that answer. I think when I first thought of the question, I was like, this could actually solve the problem, but listening to your answer, it's actually broken down recently and sort of into on a personal level. So I like that. Look, I only really have one more question, and this is basically putting us on the other side. Is that if you can see that someone else needs closure, um, and from a situation that's involving yourself, is it necessary that you? Is it important to ensure that you, as a person, also provide that closure to other people? Or is it something where you'd rather wait for the scenario where they ask for it, um, that sort of thing? Is it important that you do that? Or because obviously
So
you've got this level of emotional maturity, you can see that maybe at
yeah,
cost of cost.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. I think I address it immediately.
Yeah.
Like I'll address my portion of it because, like you say, emotional maturity, and I understand perhaps the other person's need or desire for finality. So I'll address it immediately in the softest way possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's the general rule of don't be an asshole. If you've hurt someone, if you've caused some harm to somebody, right, and you're mature enough and you're aware enough to know that you've hurt someone, and you're not a narcissist, you probably yourself you'll feel bad, right? You'll feel some form of remorse. And the moral thing to do would be to then go to that person and address it with them, right? And say, listen, I acted in a particular way. I'm sorry for my actions. If it has harmed you, then I understand that I didn't mean to hurt you, and hopefully you can forgive me here. But if someone comes to you and said, "Look, you hurt me and I need closure," I think you have a responsibility not to obstruct them, and you can do your best to assist them. But it's also worth telling them to say, "Listen, I mean, we can have a discussion, and I'll share my points of view, and I'll share why I did what I did, whatever. But that may not necessarily make you feel better. It may not necessarily give you closure. Ultimately, the closure has got to come from a choice you make." And I think, if people in our position that have actually spent a bit of time with this, you do need to try and tell people that it's actually in their hands, not in the other person's hands. You should encourage people to take control rather than cede control to someone else.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yep.
It's sort of amazing approach, which I generally agree with. Yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that. It seems very logical. Okay. In terms of questions, I don't really have any other than maybe going back to that second question that I had, and clearly the answer to is important to see that. And do I need do I need someone else's help with regards to closure? I think that definitely is not necessary. It can help, but not necessary. I think that's something that can help quite a lot of people. So I'm definitely happy to ask these questions for someone that out there that actually listens that can help us.
Listen, for us too as well.
No, sure.
Definitely.
Okay. I don't really have any other questions, but any other final thoughts that maybe something I missed out on or a question that I didn't think of?
Honestly, it's a case of don't try and rush this process. It will demand the time it needs from you, and it will make you take the appropriate amount of time. You cannot speed this up. You cannot accelerate it. As far as I know, like anyone who tries generally gets a reset. And you start back. Yeah.
Reset is being kind.
Yeah.
Reset is being
There's
kind.
that's the gentlest way I can put it. I mean, you
get knocked down on your tushy.
Yeah.
Completely.
Like these things they hit pretty hard. And when they hit you, they knock the wind out of your sails, and you don't even know how to get back up half the time. So take the appropriate amount of time. And I said earlier, it needs respect, and that I mean that deliberately. It really does. You have to respect the emotions. They are incredibly powerful emotions, and they need to be used and not used. They need to be worked with in a respectful manner. Otherwise, you're gonna see your ass several times over.
Yeah, I think that's. I know early on I mentioned healthy, unhealthy ways. I mean, like Prash also mentioned. You mentioned deferring, replacement, deflecting, delaying, replacing.
Yeah.
All of those things are just unhealthy ways of coping. It is your coping mechanism, but it is at this point some level of unhealthy. And I know in the initial phases you might want to deflect, you might want to delay, because at that point certain things are still raw for you, certain things are still painful.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not saying deal with things immediately, but deal with it as and when it starts to become a pressing matter, and it has to come to the forefront at that point. Like, you'll know when it needs to come to the forefront at that time. But replacing it with unhealthy habits, replacing it with unhealthy patterns, or just not addressing it as a whole, as Dean alluded to, you will end up on the floor, and that's not a great space to then try and pick yourself up from.
Not, no.
It's not impossible, like I've done it before, like when I was at that point, but it's a lot harder.
Yeah, just because you're up shit creek doesn't mean you must swim around with your mouth opened.
Damn straight. This podcast is definitely going to be marked as
It'll be flagged.
yeah, unsafe. No. I have to flag it as
Yeah.
as
Worse some choice wording, but it is a like
It's all
it is
good.
a powerful topic that elicits powerful responses.
Flag.
because we don't.
We're
So we
pretty
don't
careful
use
with language
vulgar
for the
language
most part.
generally.
Yeah, we're pretty careful.
Like this is the first time. This is the first time I cursed on a podcast,
Okay.
but I
I'm
did it for
surprised
effect.
I don't
Yeah.
do that every podcast. Okay.
No,
We
like
don't,
around
so
each other, we
don't
swear
generally
like
speak
sailors,
that.
but we know this is for the viewers. I mean, the listeners.
Good to know. But look, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that wrapped it up very nicely. I think you guys answered the question better than I thought I could have myself in some cases.
Yeah.
So, in most cases, actually. So,
I mean, you'd think we'd be better at it by now, but
No, we're not.
I
We're
I think you
horrible.
guys were pretty.
still getting
We're
getting
so
taught.
horrible.
I think you guys were pretty good well, but yeah. From my side, I don't think I have some questions. So, yeah, I think you can call it a day.
Oh, this is cool, man.
This was a very good one. I
like this
enjoyed
one.
it. Yeah,
Yeah. Perhaps at the right timing as
I think
well.
the timing was very good. Very good.
Yeah. So yeah, learned a lot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad.
Cool. And with that, I think we are done for the evening. As Prash mentioned, get your closure. This is our closure as well. So thank you for listening in, everyone. We appreciate you. And no matter where you're from, take care and have a great day, evening,
Bye.
or afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.